Hello everyone, I am James Rocco. I'm the creator of HellBent. I am the owner of HellBent Tabletop, and I am the sole game designer and developer of HellBent, the D10 modern role-playing system. And, as you can see, I'm also alone, save for a cat who is currently on my lap. I'm not going to show you that because breaking TAS, laps are a sensitive topic. As you can see, this is my desktop screen. It's not anything pretty or special, but that's not what we're here to look at. So as you all know, I am a game designer. I have been for a while. I considered myself one way before I went to college to study for it, and frankly, I love it. I love making games, so I thought that one thing that we could do that would actually be kind of cool to kind of break the mold a little bit is go down memory lane, take a look at some of the tabletop game projects that I've made, and then afterwards take a look at one that me and everyone else in HellBent Tabletop are actually fiddling with and work on it. So if you're here for the long haul and you're watching and you're participating, you will actually get to have a little bit of an input on the final character sheet that we use for the game. So before we begin, I want to talk a little bit about HellBent because we've been absent for a while. We have had a few missed episodes, and we have kind of a chaotic schedule for May, and mostly the reason for that is because my sister is graduating from Syracuse University. So next week, Lily and I are driving up to Syracuse. There's a whole 3-day festival, and because of that, and because of my negligence and not scheduling it properly, we have missed a few episodes, and some of the episodes are actually going to be a little bit strange and a little bit off schedule for the coming episodes. So, as you can see today, we're not doing off the grid, we're doing game design, which it's the first time we've ever done it, so it's a little bit weird. On Tuesday, we're not having Connor's campaign. We are actually doing the off-the-grid episode that we were supposed to do today on Tuesday. Thursday, we're either going to have a hijacked episode hosted solely by Lyle Style, because that's the day before I leave with Lily. So her and I are basically just going to be packing and getting ready to go. So we're not going to be able to host anything from our place. We're actually going to have to chill out a little bit and let our teammates host that. And then after that, we are going to have nothing on Sunday unless Lyle or Strix feels comfortable enough to take over again. So, because we're actually going to still be in Syracuse from then. The following Tuesday, not this upcoming Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, I'm back, Lily's back, Lyle's schedule should be clear, Strix's schedule should be clear, Connor's schedule should be clear, and Mark's schedule should be clear. So at that point, we will be back to schedule, and that is the 15th. So that's a little bit away, and a long time for you to wait for some HellBent, which I know is a lot of the bread and butter of what we do, but unfortunately, with scheduling, we're not going to be able to host that. So a few other things that I wanted to talk to you guys about, which I'm going to re-emit here because I've just realized that I haven't adjusted a lot of this for some of our new campaigning. We haven't done Hijacked in a while, or at least we haven't done Hijacked properly in a while, I should say. So let me just move this back up into place and talk a little bit more about what we're doing. So we have 2 campaigns running right now. We have our big goal, which is to install a new segment that we're hosting called Melody Mondays with Farrah Fawn, and this is basically going to be Strixslade and our tech girl, Lindsay, hosting their own Monday chaos at their place. So it's going to be a lot like Lyle streaming from his place, except a lot more extravagant and a lot crazier, and we're going to be partnering with Carcinogen SDA, which I know a lot of you are fans of, and we actually have inherited a lot of his users and viewers for this purpose. So with that being said, donate generously, and if we hit our bit goal of 5,000 bits, we will start up that Monday segment, which means more content for you, more fun for us, and a lot more interesting things for you to see. Our second goal is our subscription goal, which is sub for hoodie. If you subscribe to us, we will take our first 50 subscribers and generously donate a hoodie to one random selection. We are going to basically make HellBent gear available to you guys. T-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and the like. Right now, the only thing that we have available is our D10 Modern Role-Playing System. The complete version is $10, and it's hosted and purchasable through our lovely hosters at drivethrurpg.com. You could get the free version for HellBent at hellbenttabletop.com. Just go to the download section, download the PDF. That's $10. Like I said, it's generously contributing to the overall process of us making this game. And so yeah, that's our. If we hit those 50 subscribers, we will make the T-shirts, the tank tops, and the hoodies available to everyone. But we want to hit those 50 subscribers first because it is merchandise that we have to stock before we can sell, and that's something that we will generously do for you guys. So that's enough of me rambling. Let's talk about game design for a moment. So, like I said before, I've done game design ever since, well before I went to college. I went to college from 2007 to 2011, so I'm old. And I didn't actually start doing tabletop roleplay until I got to college, but I was privy to people playing it around me, and I always had an interest in it, and it really did capture my attention. I was doing digital game design, and I was programming stuff from, like I was doing 2D platformers and digital programming like that. And that was the sort of game design that I did. And then when I found tabletop, I really wanted to start experimenting with that. So I played a little D&D 3.5 with my friends, and I also played a little White Wolf and Vampire the Masquerade. So that's a very well-known D20 system and a very well-known D10 system. So that gave me a little bit of exposure as to what I wanted to do with a project, and then being the ignoramus that I was, I took a stab at DMing after about maybe half a year of being a player. Most people wait longer and feel a little bit more intimidated. I was foolish and I wanted to jump right in, and the system that I ended up creating was right around the time that the Avatar movie came out. And this was the one where M. Night Shyamalanga Ding Dong basically ruined the series for everyone. And in response to that, I made a tabletop D20 system that I proudly called Avatar the Sozin Shards. So this is the character sheet that I ended up making for the game, and you'll notice that there's a lot of influence heavily from, it was heavily modified from D20, like standard Dungeons and Dragons, and I was playing this with some friends, and we, Rick, Sean, Laura, Carly, Sean, there were 2 Seans in our group, and Will were kind enough to indulge me to play this with them, and it turned out to be a really broken system, but we loved it all the same. So let me talk a little bit about what I did, because I really enjoyed doing this, but it taught me a lot of valuable lessons. So, Avatar the Sozin Shards takes place 500 years after The Last Airbender, and you have to keep in mind that this is well before Legend of Korra was even announced. So this was around 2008, 2009 that I was doing this project with my friends, and I took my knowledge from D20 Modern and from D&D 3.5 and from Vampire the Masquerade around that time before it was updated, and I made this system out of it. So you'll notice a few things about it. First off, dexterity is gone. and replaced with toughness and agility. Now, my ignorant stance identified dexterity being looped into armor class as a form of toughness and a form of agility, and it was not until later that I realized that it had more to do with dodging and less to do with actually enduring the hit. So the big grieving error that I made in this system was taking dexterity and dividing it into toughness and agility, because that's not what dexterity is at all. It is in part, but barely. I got immediate questions from my players. What's the difference between toughness and vitality? And I tried to explain a whip stitch scenario of, oh, your toughness is your brawn, but your vitality is like your immunity system, and you'll realize that fortitude and immunity are actually saving throws in this system, and it was not, it was really hard to explain, or rather, it was really hard to justify, and this was well before D&D 4th edition. If D&D 5th edition came out and really simplified the whole saving throw thing and made dexterity more prominent and kind of explained it, and it showed me that I had to go back to the drawing board. So I still really do like divvying up the roles of dexterity, because one thing that you'll notice in HellBent, the system that we play now, is that dexterity is a primary attribute, but finesse and agility are secondary attributes, and I play off of those very heavily. So it's something that I do enjoy doing, but I've refined that. At this point, I was an amateur, and I just wanted to kind of show off how poorly I was doing this. So you'll also notice that I'm using Adobe Illustrator instead of Adobe Photoshop. I prefer Adobe Illustrator. It's my go-to. I find that vector art makes for a much more detailed character sheet than rasterized art, the kind of art that you get out of Photoshop. So it just makes it easier for me, because I can, you know, I can create text boxes, and I can type in simply, you know, like additional characters and the like. I can place numbers, I can place text, and I can alter it, but then I can also place boxes and lines. And I know that you could do the same thing in Photoshop, but I just like the way that this renders out better on the screen. And also, when you print it out, because this is printable media, you have to make sure that you're not doing digital art, or pixel art for that matter. So a few other things that I did for this system was I took knowledge and I threw it down on the bottom of the sheet, because one thing that you'll notice is that back in 3rd edition, 3.5, crafting, knowledge, and performance were divided away from the primary skill list, and they had secondary skills that you had to invest yourself into, and I didn't like that, but I also didn't think of a better way to do it. I know that when it comes to knowledges, D&D 5th edition kind of does away with all of it, and it kind of allows the DM to say, oh, well, if you're proficient in knowing something, then go ahead and throw yourself a standard intelligence check. And that's usually how most people do it, unless it has something to do with magic, and therefore it's an arcana check. And they divvy up knowledge into their own skills. So I tossed away performance. I made that its own thing. I tossed away crafting. I made it its own thing. And I made knowledge something that you could just take. And instead of defining it as like a list of knowledges, I allowed the players to pick 4, and then we just threw their intelligence bonuses into it. This way of thinking tied later into the proficiencies that I include in HellBent. So it's a lot. I like the choose your own skill character sheet way of architecting systems and structures into roleplay, because it allows the player to get more personable with their system, and it allows them to get more personable with their character, and it really allows them to fine-tune their skills the way that they want to see fit. you'll find a lot being a DM that players would rather have a skill of their own design and use it once than invest their points into a skill that is rigid and the system makes them invest into and use it 40 times. So another thing that you'll notice is that I had weapons proficiencies in a die class system. And basically, instead of having a list of weapons, I had a system where characters would tell me what kind of weapons they wanted to use, and then throw their points in that way. And essentially what this meant was, you want to be good with a bow? Great, you're going to throw your points into it. And that's all you need to tell me. And then you could take a short bow, you could take a long bow, you could take a crossbow, and sure, there's going to be differences in their ranges and their ammo and their all that jazz. But overall, you're going to be able to add this die to the overall damage. And that kind of worked out in such a way that it was fun to play with. Lastly, you'll notice two other things that carried over to HellBent is that profession and assets and complications. So I do love playing with assets and complications a lot. This was something that my players loved as well, and this was something that basically allowed players to impose their own restrictions and then get themselves into a stance where, hey, I want to have this restriction. And sure, it's a masochistic view, but it was a lot of fun to play with. So one other thing that I did with Avatar is I made 7 classes, and you're probably going to say to yourself, yeah, okay, what are these classes, and what, it's obvious what the first 4 are. You have your air bending, you have your fire bending, you have your water bending, and you have your earth bending. Because this story took place 500 years after the last Airbender, and we didn't have the knowledge of Legend of Korra before that. I made this game in 2008. My understanding of how Airbenders came to be was that the bloodline of Aang actually did disperse itself very rapidly throughout the land, and the New Age Airbenders were a small group. You'll notice that there's another symbol down there and a portal symbol, which I was very desperate for assets. You'll see. The other 3 classes were the Warrior class, the White Lotus class, and the Dark Artist class. So, airbending, the way that it worked was that if you were a New Age Airbender, you were part of a small cult, and because this was an evil campaign, the cult really was destined on totalitarianism, revenge for what happened to the Arab nomad culture, that sort of thing. Waterbenders were pretty much the same, firebenders were pretty much the same, earthbenders were pretty much the same, but the 3 tribes were very well organized, and Ba Sing Se was basically New Republic City that we got in Legend of Korra. The game was very steampunk-oriented. You'll see these are the 3 classes: Ways of the Warrior, the Dark Arts, and the White Lotus is a different document. But one thing that we did was we made the bending its own skill tree. And the characters got 25 levels. And each level could be invested into a rank of their own choosing. So you could take a level and throw it directly into your bending. But then you needed to basically impose other points into other branches to get yourself to where the bending needed to be to perform that rank. So basically there were 2 clauses that you needed to meet in order to do certain things. And you'll notice that there are some things that wound up in Legend of Korra but didn't wind up here. If you're just joining us, I'm going down memory lane. I'm James Rocco. I am a game designer and creator of HellBent Tabletop, a D10 modern role-playing system. And we're doing a little Dungeons & Dragons game creation tutorial. We're going to be making a character sheet in Illustrator, and we're going to be doing a little bit of going down memory lane and talk about my process through becoming a game designer and a game developer and fiddling with the systems of tabletop roleplay to come to the system that our group does every Tuesday for you live on Twitch. So this is just one example of a game system that I ended up making that I look back on. I remember fondly, and we played this game to completion with my group of friends that we were in college, but I didn't take a lot from this and carried it on because I realized there were a lot of mistakes. The immunity saving throw was a blunder. Didn't want to do that anymore. The strength, toughness, and agility coming from dexterity was a blunder. I didn't want to do that again. And frankly speaking, there were tons of mistakes in this system, and I did not carry over a lot of them. I actually corrected myself. So what's this next one that we have here? Ah, yes. So I was a sophomore in college at this point, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to take a system that existed and remake it. You'll see that me being the creator of HellBent, a D10 modern role-playing system, this is me trying to fill a gap that I saw long ago, where there are modern role-playing systems, but they're always themed in such a way where it has to be steampunk, or it has to be vampires, or it has to be something along those lines, and there's not a lot to really allow the DM to take a system that is purely just our life plus magic and make it come to reality. So this began the 3-year-long process of making my college thesis, which was Anomaly. And this was a D20 modern role-playing system that I remade 4 times and finally submitted as a 300-page book to my professor senior year and had it be what it was. So let me talk a little bit about this system. At the time, there was a D20 modern role-playing system, and it was literally called D20 Modern. And what this did was it took the 6 attributes and it made them classes, but it made them very, very loose and whip-stitched. And one thing that I didn't like about it was that it really just restricted the game to its core mechanics, and there was nothing really to indulge in races or in magic skill trees or in the barest of essentials for a class, more like what you would see in D&D. So I made Anomaly with this character sheet to try my best to supplement that. You'll notice that there's a lot of things that carry over from 3.5. For instance, the crafting, again, is the simplest of forms with the divvied up, the divvied up craft, the divvied up knowledge, the perform. These were all sub-skills that I ended up getting rid of eventually. But nonetheless, skill points, ranks, these were all still a feature that I couldn't find a way to jump from because 3.5 was, at its time, the pinnacle of role-playing, and everyone loved it, and why not just stick to what everybody loved? So what I did run into was the integration of races into a modern setting. So this game had a few races. They had humans, they had psychs, which were basically metaphysic altering humans that were exposed to a radiation of a new experimental power plant, and they had a very pure white light sort of angelic magic skill tree, but it was all one soul element. The tieflings carried over, but this was not the tieflings that you're familiar with in D20. This was a race that emerged from a alternate dimension that I will get to later. There were cyborgs, and these characters were amputees and humans that had fallen victim to the accidents that were prone while creating such a power plant, and they received cybernetic implants and augmentations that allowed them to use special cyborg weapons and have certain properties about them. And then lastly, there were the splicers, and part of the initiative towards remedying such accidents in the workplace were to inject animalistic genomes into humans and basically making them anthropomorphic splicers who had properties that from the animal genome that they exhibited. And the 5 animals that you could pick from were felines, canines, lagomorphs, the Myotis strain, which were bats, and then the reptile strain, which were amphibious reptiles. So some of the things that carried over to this system from 3.5 directly were the dexterity modifiers and the con modifiers and the saving throws and the attack rolls and everything along that. The base attack bonus basically being the proficiency bonus that you see in D&D 5th edition now. What didn't carry over were the classes, because I took the classes from the D20 system, but I improved them and I allowed certain classes to have racial skills or racial features within them. So if you were a canine splicer, you would have class abilities along the lines of a werewolf. If you took the strength class or the tough class or something along those lines. If you had the wisdom class and you took the canine strain, then basically you would have heightened animalistic senses, that sort of thing. So this project worked pretty well. I was definitely onto something because the group that I was playing with, which was a totally different group at the time, I was playing with my friends Brian, Ty, Roxanne, Michael, Jason, there was another Michael, Ashley and Kate. They were a great group to play with, and they indulged me heavily. Basically, we would play twice a week from 5 in the afternoon to 5 in the morning. And this was crazy because during my senior year, the college seminars were the semesters were 10 weeks long. And so they were very, very cram-packed, and so we got in as much role-playing as we could. And because we were young college 19, 20-something-year-olds, and because we were hopped up on Red Bull and energy drinks and everything along those lines, we were able to role-play for 12 hours a night, twice a week, and still do all our homework. So it was a lot of crazy fun, but we had a lot of fun. Anomaly ended up being rewritten like this for the final version that I submitted to my professor. And one thing that you'll notice about this is that every class had their own little segments that you could basically insert into depending on what race you were. So again, with Illustrator, you just make layers, and this is a lot of fun. You'll notice that there's a lot of stuff that carries over. Again, I'm still doing the skills, and I'm still doing a lot of other stuff that you saw in 3.5. But you'll notice that one thing that I entered in from, strangely enough, Pathfinder, was combat maneuverability. Now, this was basically the difference between a melee attack, a ranged attack, and a tactical attack. And one thing that you'll notice in the final iteration of Anomaly that I never actually got to play with anyone was OCM and DCM. So this is for stuff like bull rushing, disarming, tripping, that sort of thing. And whenever you're doing a non-damaging attack, you're using offensive combat maneuverability. And I know that's a mouthful, you just call it OCM, but it's a way of getting away from the base attack bonus and from using your class bonus instead. There were not a lot of changes to this, but for Anomaly Existence, I'll actually throw up the actual character book, if I can get it. I think complete book files. We'll open up the final one. So one thing that you'll see in this book is that there actually are proper classes in this, and you'll see there are actually more races in this book. We had androids in this class, in this system, and we also had therianthropes, which were lycanthropes, but for whatever genomic splicer strain you wanted to choose. So there were 12 classes, like actual proper classes in this system. There were the warrior, the gunslinger, the infiltrator, the martial artist, the techie, the field scientist, the linguist, the freelancer, the feral, the overclocker, the battle mage, and the spellcaster. And these classes, the first 8 were takeable by any race, but the 9th one, the feral, you could only be a feral if you were a therianthrope or a full breed splicer. The overclocker you could only take if you were a cyborg or an android, and then the final 2, the battle mage and the spellcaster, you could only take if you were a psych or if you were a tiefling or a human, but you had to be a magical human, and that was actually a asset that you needed to take and spend points to attribute to. So you'll notice that Battle Mage and Spellcaster are 2 demonic paths that you can take if you're a warlock in HellBent. So this was me coming to the conclusion that I had something on my hands, but it was still unrefined, and it was still copying a lot of elements from other systems that I wanted to stray away from, but didn't know how to. So my college thesis was essentially that 300-page book, which had a whole crap ton of other feats and skills and stuff, and now we have these massive, massive, massive spell books that you could basically take all the way up to 9th level here. And this was just a gigantic thing. We had android parts, which were all purchasable things, splicer traits that you could interchange and mix and match depending on your strains, and then we had a huge general equipment list. This was just basically a big project, and I submitted it as my final project as a college thesis, and then I graduated. So we played this game once, and we did this over the course of 6 weeks. We actually ended up playing a human version of VTM after this. So what did I take away from this to make HellBent? Basically, what I learned was I was copying a lot from everything. I was slowly realizing what I liked. I was slowly realizing what I didn't like. I was rehashing a lot of stuff from lots and lots of elements that I didn't really want to be associated with. In fact, I even redid Anomaly again in another project that I called Anomaly Redux. And you'll notice again, here we go, vitality and dexterity are separate. Vitality has always replaced constitution in my mind, except for when I was still experimenting. And I was still adhering to some really simple stuff that it was getting tired. So eventually I started fiddling with some extra stuff. I had a friend ask me to make something based off Devil May Cry, and this was a die class system of all things. I didn't really like that much, but I played with it, let alone, let alone everything else that could go wrong with running off a proprietary system like that. I made another game called Vessels, which I tried to use my friend's game design project for, Rick, who had played Anomaly, Avatar with me. They were hosting a lot of games. We ended up playing the Serenity system with them. If you're familiar with Firefly or Serenity, we ended up playing that game for them a lot. We were doing some other things in the back end, and I was learning a lot about stuff. And when I came to my Vessels system, that's when I started playing with D10 and with my friend's system, my friend's Omni system, which basically looped in a lot of elements of choice and a lot of elements of fluidity towards what role-playing was. In the end, I ended up making HellBent, the first HellBent system. This is what it looked like. And the music is appropriately changing to an angelic, demonic method of, theme, which I find hilarious. HellBent 1 had its own flaws. And I played this game with a lot of the original people that you actually met on stream, if you've ever watched us. Prunella wants to say hi really quick. Hi, Prunella. Hi, babe. HellBent had a lot of problems to start. First off, with a D10 system, you run into the problem of figuring out how much a weapon should do. If it's not a set amount, then how do you determine how much damage you're doing with a weapon? And with a D10 system, you're running off successes. So usually you get 1, 2, 3, on a good day you get 4 successes for a good skill check. For an attack roll, it can get a little bit more complicated for that. We were running into a scenario where weapons were becoming weak because people were constantly getting 1 success or 2 successes, and we didn't want to keep on chiseling away at demons that had tanky amounts of health. So the weapons had this grid, and weapons had a set amount of damage for certain successes, and what we played around with were weapons that would do 1 damage, 2 damage, 4 damage, 8 damage, 12 damage, based on the improbability of getting more successes throughout a roll. Because it was actually harder to get 5 successes than it was to get 4 successes, but not in the same way that it's harder to roll a 19 or a 20 on a d20 die. So the weapon damage had to go up incrementally instead of just a stack amount of damage rating. I do return to a damage rating system in the second version of HellBent, which is what you can download now. It was easier. We had a lot more interesting weapons in the first version of HellBent. For instance, if you had a shotgun, instead of it doing 1 damage for 1 success, 2 damage for 2 successes, 4 damage for 3 successes, 6 damage for 4 successes, and then, 9 damage for 5 successes, and then every additional success after that adds 3 or something along those lines, we would make it more along the lines of like a buckshot, where 1 success was a grazing shot, so it would do 2 damage, but then 2 successes was more of a full-on hit, and because shotguns are so spread out with pellets and the like, 2 successes actually did 7 damage, and then 3 successes also did 7 damage, and then 4 successes also did 7 damage, and it wasn't until you got 5 successes that you were doing like 9 damage, and then every additional success after that was an additional 2 successes. So the increment didn't go up in a proper curve like most other weapons that had a blade or a bullet. Buckshot had more of like a plateauing damage for like a sweet spot, and then it would go up. And what this allowed was it allowed the classes to hop in and do a lot more of the work that that the weapons needed to do. So, for instance, if you were in this version of the game, there were no Reapers and there were no Fallen Angels, but there was a class that I actually got rid of, and that class was the Planar Devil. And the Planar Devil was sort of like a Pokemon, where you could choose a hellish plane to derive from, and then your demonic abilities were all elemental. So if you chose the Fire Planar Devil, your damage could go incrementally up depending on how much fire energy you wanted to invest to it, and then basically your rounds became incendiary rounds. We played around with this class, and we didn't like it because it was sort of setting yourself up to fail. You could get around your weaknesses, your elemental weaknesses, I mean. So if you were a Fire Planar Devil, you basically couldn't go swimming without losing all of your abilities, and it did kind of suck. There was a big bad evil in our campaign that we played. One of the demonic characters that the team had to go up against was a nature Planar Devil, and she basically turned the entire battlefield into a strip mine of vines and trees, and all these plants were attacking the party, and it only took like 2 Molotov cocktails to take her down. So it was an intended weakness, but again, setting yourself up to fail. A few other problems that came up from this system were my further attempts to, again, stray away from armor class. So one thing that you'll notice is that the tertiary attributes up here are very different from what you see on the normal HellBent character sheet. Sanity allowed you to have 6 strikes. The 7th was what made you insane. And this turned out to be way too many. So just like Life Force has 3, allowing the 4th to make you lose your soul, I had Sanity become just 3 strikes. And then on your 4th strike, you lose your mind. So that was a blunder that I did, and it wasn't without beta testing that we realized that 6 strikes was way too many. So there was no other way to realize that unless we played the game. And after playing the game for about 8 months, it became obvious. So another problem that we ran into was dodging and defense. Now, if you say defend or dodge to any of my previous players, they will groan, and they will roll their eyes, and they will glare at me with an evil look. I will raise my hands, and I will say, sorry, it wasn't my fault. It was me experimenting. And what we ran into was this. In my attempts to get rid of armor class and to get rid of a defense role for players, the players had to make a choice every single time an attack was thrown at them. You could either defend and basically cross your arms and try to endure the attack, and it's at that point that the attacker had to hit a certain amount of successes, or rather, the attacker had to hit a certain amount of damage dealt in order to deal damage to the player. Dodge was a lot more like how defense operates now in HellBent. You roll... No, I'm sorry. It doesn't function like that. It functions more like a reflex save. If you roll your dodge roll against your dodge difficulty, and then the player, or the attacker, rolls their attack roll against the dodge difficulty instead of against your armor, the successes that you achieve are canceled out from the attack roll that the attacker rolls, and then the damage goes through. The way that defense works now in HellBent is that your defense is subtract from the attack roll flat, and then those successes carry out to deal damage on your character. Simple as that. The problems that this imposed, first off, it was a lot more math to do. You had to do a lot of problem solving on the fly just to get an attack through. And the second thing, there was a lot of player input that was needed. If a player was asleep and basically an attack was coming at them, the DM didn't have the ability to be like, okay, you just take 4 damage. Because then the player was like, oh wait, I wanted to dodge that, or I wanted to defend that. So, unless it was a surprise attack in which the player did not have the choice to dodge, the attacking became a chore. Basically, players had to stay attentive, and on the 4th or 5th hour of role-playing, you could start to see players nod off. It was not fun. None of my players liked it, and they begged me to get rid of it for the next HellBent, and I did. Some things that carried over. So, speed actually did stay. We used the agility secondary attribute, and it starts 20 and it goes up to 40, depending on how fast your speed was. But I made a little chart next to speed, and it's a lot easier to keep track of what was done. Plot points. Plot points are probably the most fun thing that I discovered as a game designer. Plot points was actually something that we played with in the Serenity system, the Firefly campaign rulebook. As a die class system, it was a little bit interesting to basically have a set amount of rerolls that you could do, and to have them awarded based on player input. It was fun. People start out with 6 plot points, and depending on how well you role-played, you got more plot points, and it was just a fun way to get players to participate and show their initiative. HellBent allowed you to stack plot points. You started off with 3, but that was at the beginning of the campaign. If you were a good player and you were making the DM laugh, that basically my constituencies were, if you drew art or if you made me laugh, you got plot points. And now, obviously, at an art college, drawing is a lot more frequent, but my group doesn't really have the artistic skills to do that, so I don't impose that on them. I basically say, the only way to get plot points is to make me laugh, or to be the final blow, or to solve a riddle, or to do something along those lines, and it worked out great. The only problem was stockpiling, so you'll notice that this time around in HellBent, you get 3 plot points every session, unless you take abundant plot points, which is a human skill, and you get 4. Simple as that. Demonic Path Tree carried over. I still have the maximum level B13. There are no plans to multi-class just yet. I am thinking about that, but it's really hard to work it into the plot, so I don't really plan on doing that much. Proficiencies, there were a lot more rooms to write proficiencies, and basically you only needed like 5. Power was something that carried over, but it wasn't something that I did the same way as before. Life is probably the most important of the primary attributes, but the way that HellBent worked is that there were a few classes that were very tanky, and that was the Banshee, the Demi-Lich, and the Planar Devil. And these classes relied on their... Oh yeah, the Merilith was actually a life class as well. So those three classes, those three classes had life be their primary demonic attribute, but the way that power was derived was that it was the average between your life and your character level, and life became the demonic attribute for every class. That was a big no-no. We started realizing that there were characters that were weaker than others, and because they were playing a class that was based solely off strength or vitality, like, for instance, the Wrath Beast. But characters that were working off life, like, for instance, the Banshee or the Merilith, they were able to draw into a pool and have their points do double duty, basically. You'll notice that the HP and MP containers are down here, and that magic and health replace magic and form, which you now see on the character sheet. This was where you were writing your maximum HP and MP, and the calculation to get to those are a little bit the same, but they were harder to do in the first version of HellBent, so I just scrapped the whole thing and I redid it. And then you'll notice a few other things, like, for instance, the cash thing is down here, but there was no place to write down what you had in your credit card account, which we realized was a big problem for HellBent 1. HellBent 2 has a designated spot for all of your digital currencies, and that's just a really big element in a modern campaign. You need to have an account. So you'll notice that the physical tree and the metaphysical tree had their own places to write them down. I changed this, obviously, but it functioned the same way. There was just a place to write it down. So yeah, this was the first HellBent sheet, and it was a great experiment. It taught me a lot. It was a fun game to play with everyone that we played, and it wasn't until I took another stab at it that we came up with the second version of HellBent. We agreed to play it on stream. I was writing the second version of HellBent while we were playing D20 5th edition, the standard Dungeons and Dragons, and we had a lot of fun with this because we were playing a story called Fleeting Wings, in which I added in a few more races and a few more classes that the players could choose from, and it was great, but it was pure Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and I didn't do any real work for that in Illustrator, save for the battle grid. We used a digital battle grid, and I basically kind of had a template here to do it, where I would kind of drag and drop assets around and kind of make like a battle grid based off of what the combat was going to be, and then we had all our player characters here, and we had all of our enemies here, and we had some NPCs here, and then we had some bigger enemies here, and basically this was just a battle grid that ended up becoming a gigantic template. We didn't end up doing any of this for HellBent 2, because if you watch our previous streams, we used our isometric battle grid, but it kind of worked out the same way, where I had assets on the side and then I had a big grid to work with. So, this is a project that Lyle and Mark and I were fiddling with, and I kind of want to take a break here because I need to eat something, and we don't have a lot of viewers right now, unfortunately. I believe we just have our wonderful and our loyal appears that my chat is a little bit buggy right now. So, Electrical Skateboard and Slow Cool thank you so much for listening to me drone on about game design and mechanics and the like. I hope that some of this was insightful. If not, then obviously, you're just lurking, and that's fine. Trying to decide if there's anything else we could do, because really, I've just kind of been rambling on, and I've been going down memory lane a little bit. I guess if I guess what I'll do is I'll go into break for about 15 minutes, and then if somebody in chat, while I'm on break, pops in and tells me what to do, I'll do it, and I'll set it up. But if not, then, what I'll do is I will, I don't know, maybe I'll play a little video game, maybe I'll work with a little bit of stuff that I've been fiddling with in the back end, I don't know. So let me go on break really quick, let me grab some food because I am starving, and let me do like a faux mukbang sort of with you guys, after I grab my food, and we'll have a little bit of fun. So yeah, let me go on break, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. See you later. And we're back. So, why are we playing Mega Man X? I mean, it's obvious. First off, it's one of my favorite games. Secondly, this is probably the biggest example of game design, game improvements, looking at something old and making it better. I'm going to move the window over just a little bit so that everyone can see. Continue from there. Mega Man X is a fantastic example of taking what worked, improving upon it, and taking out stuff that didn't while maintaining a theme that worked, that made the player feel important. So, I mean, if you've followed Game Grumps or Ego Raptor and heard him talk on his Sequelitis series about Mega Man X, this is all going to be coming back to as obvious regurgitation, but it's the truth. Mega Man X is the pinnacle of taking a theme and bolstering it. To put it even stronger, I mean, it's one of my favorite games. I grew up with them. These were my favorite freaking cartridges from my youth. My cousins gave them to me. They had my cousin's name were on the back, and then I just kept on playing Mega Man until I got an N64, and then I was hooked. But I never really got a chance to play Mega Man X until I got a computer that had an emulator, and really blew my mind, and the whole story of Mega Man X kind of blew me away. So anyway, we're just gonna play through. There's no goal for this. There's no objective. I might turn it off midway. We don't know. I'm gonna just try to play through it and keep you guys entertained while talking about the game design of Mega Man. So one thing you'll notice is that a lot of things stay put in Mega Man. There's the obvious platforms, there's the health bar, there's the small square-ish figure of the character. The jumping feels very nice, the shooting feels very nice, and everything just looks better because obviously this was the 16-bit platform and everybody was excited to see what it offered. What didn't stay the same were a few things. The NES tried to force the player to jump right into a level, and then if they felt frustrated, what was the caveat was you could just go to another Robot Master and you could play another type of boss, and maybe then you'll get to the end and you'll beat the Robot Master and you say, oh, I feel really, really great about that. That was fantastic. In Mega Man X, you're in this intro stage and you're saying to yourself, oh my god, I'm throwing right into the action. What's happening here? I don't know what's happening. I'm just shooting stuff. Well, that's great. You know what? You're gonna need it because now you're gonna have to learn a few basic skills because there's a lot of changes. First off, there's a lot of differences for vertical movement in this game, and that came solely with the wall kicking, the wall climbing, that sort of thing. This was not present in Mega Man Classic at all, except for maybe the item 3 in Mega Man 2 and something like that. You know, the grapple that you got in Mega Man 4. That's the only real associations I could come up with. And it wasn't until Mega Man 7, Mega Man 8 when they finally have done through Mega Man X and they've done the research, they knew what they were doing, they knew what they were learning, and yeah, Alzier, he can't shoot diagonal. There was actually Mega Man and Bass that came after that, and then if you played as Bass, you were able to shoot diagonal. Mega Man X8 solved that problem too with Mega Man X8 solved that problem too with Axel. He basically had the same sit still and shoot in cardinal directions sort of thing going on. But yeah, anyway, there's a lot of improvements in this game. One of them is theming, and you'll notice right here, you've got this world that's being destroyed by obvious enemy force, you know, nameless enemy force to shoot the bad guys, and that's the whole point of the game. But eventually, oh no, we start seeing the big bad evil guy, and that's Vile. Now he's gonna jump up, and he's gonna make you feel absolutely shitty and powerless. But frankly, no way to beat him. There actually is no way to beat him. You shoot him, you get your health down to a certain point, and then after he gets your health down to a whole point, he'll actually avoid you until he hits you with one of these little things. So there's no way to die. And all of a sudden, story. This is something that you rarely get in a Mega Man game until you start getting to Mega Man 7, which, again, you'll see the intro stage. There are cutscenes in front of Mega Man games, but they're very rudimentary, very basic. Drops for zero. Holy shit. He doesn't have shoulder pads because they didn't even know he wanted to have a sword at this point. Very, very thematic game. I guess I'm just not able to defeat him. X, you shouldn't defeat him, blah, blah, blah. You still have to learn. I'm better than you, blah, blah, blah. Wily made me, and I'm going to destroy the planet with the built-in virus because I don't know that. Spoiler alert. So now, all of a sudden, we're on this self-exploratory journey of empowerment and betterness and... the intro music. The stage intro music. It's fantastic. So, what can we learn from what we just saw? Theming. It gets a player engaged. It gets them involved. It makes them want to play your game, which is the whole bloody point. But what does it do for the game itself? Well, it can offer a guideline to the designer, actually. It can keep you focused. A lot of games that I see nowadays, and frankly, I'm a little worried to see that we're gonna jump into another, shovelware experience. There were, like, okay. Video games were invented by Americans. The very first video game was actually made on government property on an oscilloscope. And hilariously enough, if the government ever found out about tennis for two, then it could have been government proprietary. It could have been government property. Video games could have been simulation and nothing else for the training of the government. And instead, it was moved over to a whole bunch of other stuff, and it became IP, so that's good. Ah, so you've come. I am a hologram. I am working with, Jarvis in the Infinity War game because I have Marvel vs. Capcom licenses, and now I'm going to just underhandedly hand you some stuff and some stupid knowledge that we're gonna skip it because I said so. This actually brings me to another point, and I know I'm interrupting myself when I say this, but here we go. Theming. What's another theme of Mega Man X? Well, the dashing, the growth, the power-ups that create permanent increases to your health, the sub-tanks that you find eventually, the ability to grow as a character. Mega Man X says to Zero in the very beginning of the intro stage, oh, I guess I'm not strong enough to beat him. Well then get strong, boy! Get those gains! We're gonna see X grow into a character that's able to take down Sigma, able to take down Vile, and grow as a whole point. That's the theme. The theme works so well because you're organizing your own thoughts, you're getting X into the state of growth, and growth has always been a motivator in the gaming universe. You know, you see it in D&D, you see it in lots of games that have experience and everything. It's a huge motivator. So it gets the player involved, it gets the player engaged, and it makes a great game. So I interrupted myself before. One thing that I'm afraid to see is another shovelware experience. So, games were invented by the Americans, but the game industry was dominated by the Japanese for a very long time. Everywhere from the N64 up until we saw the first Xbox, video games were dominated by the Japanese. Why? Well, you were seeing a case of shovelware. Basically, I'm sorry, I got a little distracted by the fact that I'm fighting a penguin. So, Americans had arcade cabinets going on, they had the Atari going on, they had a lot of things going on, and a lot of it was working, but there was too much of it. And it wasn't until the NES came out with a game, and the Nintendo came out with a game that had a goal other than a high score table, and that was Donkey Kong. And if you're familiar with Donkey Kong, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. You beat the big bad evil guy in the end. And it might be the most simplest of motivators, but it's a motivator nonetheless. That's what made people want Nintendo. That's what made people buy the NES, and it's another gigantic part of why game design can be so underestimated as a talent, as a knowledge, as a profession. What do we take from this? So, there are two instances in my reckoning of shovelware. When the Americans were producing nothing but arcade cabinets and nothing but shitty games for, like, Atari and Commodores and stuff like that, someone stepped in and filled the niche. That was quickly formed. Another instance is when World War II games were dominating the market. This was back when the GameCube and the Xbox, the original Xbox, the PlayStation 2, this was Call of Duty 1, Call of Duty 2, Medal of Honor. All of these games were nothing more than... Actually, hold on a second, I forget. This is funny. Okay, so nothing more than just plain old shovelware. It was game after game after game after game of the same. And so Nintendo stepped up to the stage after the arcade, the Atari crisis, and Infinity War stepped up to the stage after Call of Duty, the World War II craze. So what I'm fearful of is another shovelware. Another crisis scenario where all we see is shovelware, 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 and I'm fearful that, Black Ops 4 is going to be nothing more than shovelware. I'm fearful. We don't know what the premise of that game is yet, but Treyarch has always been the weakest of the three evils, in my opinion. We've seen a lot of problems with, like sandbox game going nowhere. We've seen a lot of problems with MMOs going nowhere. We've seen a lot of problems in general, and yeah, sure, the industry is going to try its best to circumvent this. They're trying to find new hardware that they can play with. They're trying to find a lot of new things to just entertain people with, but it's really hard. It's really hard to come up with that new thing that makes people want to invest. And, I could get into how the economy has played a role into this. I'm going to try my best not to, but it's got to be affordable. It's got to be accessible by lots of people. Come on. It's got to be it's got to have a lot of elements all in play and all ready to just be for it to succeed. And, Toys R Us closed down. We have a problem where people just want a tablet. So, what do we say to those people? I don't know if you guys have played Fallout Shelter, but they recently came up with an update, and that update was literally just the game's icon, because apparently literally every app has an icon of their main character shouting to the right for no apparent reason. And, I mean, what do we take from this? Well, it's the shovelware. It's the shovelware. And so I'm fearful of that. I don't know if I have any more real game design stuff to talk about, because right now I'm getting my ass handed to me by an elephant. Yep, that happened. Well, we'll see. I'm just really appreciative of this game, because it shows just how right something can go. You take an element that works, an element that's popular, and you don't only make it better, but you advance upon it. And I mean, like, we could play 20XX after this, obviously, and we could see just how good, you know, this platforming game could be, you know, you know, you don't think it's that deep, but, you know, the simplest of things can get very deep after a while. I actually loved this game so much that, I ended up making a small Mega Man clone as, like, a portfolio piece to get into college. I called it Techno, and it was really just, like, the most obviously, like, made by a high schooler game. So, like, I don't know. I'm not even gonna show that to you guys, because that, you know, that's just embarrassing. But I love how when Flame Mammoth jumps onto you, he does less damage than Chilled Penguin, but somehow he's bigger, bulkier, heavier, and he's swole, so he's kicking ass, you know? I don't know. It's pretty crazy. For everybody who's just joined in, my name's James Rocco. I'm the owner of HellBent Tabletop, the creator of HellBent, the D10 modern role-playing system that you can download for free at hellbenttabletop.com. We're doing a little bit of down memory lane, sort of my history as being a game designer, and we're just taking a look at a game that I really appreciate in that realm, a game that I really like as a kid, and a game that I know has elements of game design seated really deep inside it. So we're just playing through. I'm not doing any goals. I'm not doing any objective. There's no 100 completion. I'm just grabbing what I know, what I can remember from not touching this game in over a year. And yeah, we're just having fun with it. So I'm also talking about game design and history of game, you know, game design as a whole for like a lot of, you know, just the industry. I could get into talking about how the iPhone affected the game industry and game design as a whole. I'm tempted to, actually, now. Let me just kind of focus here, because here I am trying to, like, focus and balance. But I do want to talk a little bit about what HellBent Tabletop is doing as a channel really quick. So, we have two goals going on. We have a big goal and a subscriber goal. If you hit the subscriber goal, the first 50 will be, randomly entered into a giveaway. One lucky person is going to get a HellBent hoodie. It's pretty cool. If you want a tank top or a t-shirt, we got those as well. We're going to make them available for everyone, but we want to hit those 50 subs first. Our big goal is for our Monday installment, our Monday segment that we're trying to get up and running, where Strict Slade, the wonderful girlfriend of Carcinogen SDA, is going to start Melody Mondays with Farrah Fawn, our tech person who has helped us in the past with, I'm not dying yet, with our setups. So if we hit 5,000, we're going to have Mondays become another segment on HellBent. That'll be our fourth installment, our fourth segment. Right now we do Tuesdays with our live role play, and we do Thursdays with our hijack stream, where donators weekly get the chance to subscribe and tell us what to play. It's kind of fun. Whoop, there I go. So Sundays we play Off the Grid, which is our installment and our segment for doing board games and card games that might not be out yet. And yeah, we do a lot of stuff here, so thanks for joining in, thanks for watching, and yeah, we're just kicking some ass in Mega Man X. I'm gonna try to get to that Sigma. So, the iPhone. What did the mobile smartphone have as an impact to game design as a whole? Well, I could talk about the input surface for one. Having literally only one button on a device was kind of unheard of, considering the fact that many controllers had more than that. Though, at this point, a lot of the mainstream consoles were really solidified on the 2-joystick, 12-button layout. And what I mean by that is you've got A, B, X, Y, select, start, 2 triggers on either side, and then the joysticks. And if you add that up, that's 12. So that's the 12 buttons that basically make up your modern-day controllers now. What else? So we've got, so touchscreens. Touchscreens are the biggie here. What do you do with them? How can you use them? How many buttons can you be pressing on a lot of them? And then a lot of the games that you noticed at first that were successful used only one finger. And one of the things that you can attribute this to is Angry Birds. Another thing that you can attribute this to was Bejeweled. Now, I know for a fact that Apple made a gigantic deal with PopCap Games at the beginning of the iPhone's launch. And they wanted to make sure that a video game was present on the iPhone. They wanted to make sure that this smartphone was a device that could do anything, video games included. So it was obvious that the iPhone was taking on the market. It was obvious that Apple wanted to become a video game platform. And in a way it was, though it became a very big joke amongst most gamers that people who played video games on a smartphone were casuals. And yeah, I mean that's not untrue. A lot of the games that you played on an iPhone were very simple, but if you compared it to the games that were on portable devices at the time, the other two really big portable devices were the PSP and the Nintendo DS. I mean the first Nintendo DS. The 3DS hadn't even come out yet. So what does this mean? This means that the iPhone really was the pinnacle of mobile gaming at its core, but it was such a new system, it was such a new platform that nobody knew how to deal with it. Nobody knew how to use it. And what did this do to the industry? Well, you saw a gigantic surge in industries buying up small studios. A big example of this, and one that I think was one of the biggest head turners of the video game industry, was Rareware. Rare made Banjo-Kazooie. They made Diddy Kong Racing. They made a lot of the Donkey Kong games for the SNES. They made Perfect Dark. They made Jet Force Gemini. They made the 007 GoldenEye games. They revolutionized a lot of elements in video game history. And they made sure that a lot of the pinnacles that are still attributed to today in the industry are key elements of game design. But because the iPhone was bought, a lot of AAA studios and a lot of AAA publishers had no idea what was going to happen. They said to themselves, oh, well, are we going to have to start making mobile games? Oh, well, we have these platforms, what are we going to do? So basically, they hired manpower. And one thing that they hired, well, one thing that Microsoft hired was Rareware. And we saw their first real work for their company was Perfect Dark Zero on a launch title for the Xbox 360. It was a big deal because they wanted a good shooter, and yeah, they had Halo, but they wanted Halo 3 to be an even bigger deal. So, one thing that you saw was industries really experimenting and not knowing what was going to happen. So they took a lot of safeguards, they canceled a lot of really interesting projects. One thing that I really hated was the fact that Bizarre Games ended up going bankrupt and ended up not really making as much money as they should. One project that they did that I really liked was Blur, and basically combined Mario Kart and Forza Motorsport together, and I loved it, but they didn't, they didn't really see the game being so successful. And I'm not attributing that to the iPhone alone, but the game industry is still reveling from the fact that smartphones are now a major consumer of video games. Pokemon Go, Super Mario Run, what are some other big ones? Fallout Shelter, yeah. You've got a lot of game studios paying closer attention to the mobile market because it is dominant. And all those toddlers that made Toys R Us go out of business, they want tablets, they want phones, they don't want toys, they want a device. And you better have a fucking killer app on that device, or else you're not making any money. That's as simple as it goes, you know? We're gonna start seeing a lot more things on the mobile phone. In fact, didn't PUBG just release a mobile version? It's huge. It's really huge. Ugh. So yeah, that's me ranting and talking about game design as a whole. I guess I could go back to stuff. I'm not even noticing people talking. Undying Usagi, thank you so much for chiming in. I hope that you're watching the stream and enjoying it. I'll tell you this right now. For the first hour of this stream, I was talking solely about my history as a game designer and all the tabletop projects that I was working on. So if you go back on YouTube and you catch this once it's uploaded, you'll see that I go down memory lane and I talk about a lot of other projects that I made that led up to the creation of HellBent Tabletop, the D10 modern role-playing system that we have available on HellBentTabletop.com for free. If you want the free version, of course. So, I'm hitting every single one of you, aren't I? Come on. There we go. I have not prepared to fight this guy, but we're gonna try. I actually set up my controller one wrong. I like having my dash buttons on a shoulder button, but I kept it as the classic SNES format. Even though I'm using an Xbox controller, it's, oh, come on now. Yeah, I'm just gonna die. I don't want to deal with this guy right now. Oh, great. I guess I have to do that whole level over again. And I'm losing viewers. Woohoo! Let's do a different course, shall we? Do this guy. So yeah. Talking about game design, talking about elements of this game, which I think is a really good example of solid video game advancement, talking about some other things like the game industry as a whole, some things that I'm interested in seeing in the future. Let's see. So I know for a fact that Bethesda wants to work on a new project. I think that they are trying to hire a little bit more manpower. The team that makes Fallout and Elder Scrolls, it's 3 guys, I think, and they only work on those 2 projects, and then everything else is made by ID Software. These 2 guys, I think they're the reason why we're holding off on Elder Scrolls 6 a lot is because of the fact that we see, oh boy, that was me fucking up. I think the reason why we're not seeing Elder Scrolls 6 is because these guys want to pursue a different IP. There's no real way of knowing what this new open sandbox might be. There's no way of knowing if it's going to even be an open sandbox. But personally, I think that one thing that I would like to see, based solely off of the political climate that our country is witnessing, is sort of like a martial law sort of game idea. Picture a world where, like, states are actually seceding, and I mean, like, yeah, that's really unbelievable, but we're talking video game concepts, so, like, this is, it can be unbelievable, you know? Let's give some people some slack here. I would love to see Call of Duty martial law. I think that would really be cool. You know, have, like, sort of a 3-way conflict between the U.S. military, the alt-right separatists, and whatever the, you know, the anti-fascists want to call themselves. I would love to see something along the lines of a, you know, like a story that... Ooh, oh boy. I would like to see a story along the lines of, like, what Battlefield 1 did, where you can pick, you know, multiple characters and go down different pathways. I would love to see that. I would love to see what they write in terms of, like secession and that sort of thing, but also, you know, seceding from other countries. It's something that we saw in Call of Duty Ghosts a lot, which I actually think was one of the stronger Call of Duty games. And I know that's a very unpopular opinion, but, you know, Infinity Warfare, the only cool thing that I liked about that was the zero-G combat and the fact that you could, you know, like, it had a story that I really enjoyed. I liked traveling to all the other planets, and I kind of have a, like a interest in space travel, but, like, realistic space travel. So, I really liked being able to travel to Uranus and to Pluto and to all those other planets and have a space combat there, but it's just another mission. I also really liked the fighter craft that the main character flew. I loved the way that you could see the two joysticks and you could like toggle between strafing and toggle between actual flights. I loved that. I thought that that was really creative. That's actually something that you see a lot in space flight, you know, in particular. For instance, Elite Dangerous or Kerbal Space Program, you're seeing a lot of people, that's actually how you fly in space. You use vector rockets and you use your RCS. You don't actually fly by continuously burning your propellant, as, you know, Star Wars would have you believe otherwise. Ghosts Camp was pretty cool. I loved the chainsaw. Yeah, Dai Usagi, I thought that the chainsaw was actually a lot of fun. My die for head over heels weapon that I love, like I wish I owned this weapon, but I'm not that crazy. The M14 or the Mark 14, that weapon platform is my favorite. So if you have that weapon in your shooter, you've already convinced me about 15% of the way to buy your game. I heard that game was available in Far Cry 5. It made me download it. That game is now available as the Ruger 14 in PUBG, and I have it on my wish list. I'm tempted to buy it. But yeah, I loved the fact that the marksman rifle was available as a. I loved the marksman class as a weapon. You didn't see that in any other Call of Duty games, you know. In Modern Warfare 3, they experimented with machine pistols, and I loved that. But they didn't take it as far as I would have loved. You had this special ops variant where you could do, like, couch co-op and do, like, pre-made missions and something. I would have loved to see something along the lines of, like, what am I trying to get at? Like, you know how in Counter-Strike, you buy a pistol and you start with a pistol, right? I didn't appreciate how in Ghosts, a primary weapon cost 1 point, and then a secondary weapon cost 1 point. The one thing that I would change about the Create a Class 13-point buy system in that game would literally be make a primary weapon 2 points to purchase, and make that the only thing that was 2 points to purchase, in terms of a weapon, you know? It would encourage people to make more pistol-focused classes. It would make more of a, like, guerrilla warfare theme kind of work out, and hey, now we're returning to an element of game design. Theming! You have to focus on a theme. If you stick to your theme, you won't get distracted. If you stick to a theme, you will make a better game. I assure you, there's no other way around it. Undying Usagi writes, yeah, Mark 14 is pretty badass. I liked most of the single-shot rifles, and there were a lot of them. I'm gonna try this guy again. I'm probably gonna die again, but now that I have the tornado, I'll probably use it on that goo guy, and I'll be able to take out Mandrill. The FAL was my go-to banger. Yeah, you know, I learned something interesting about the FAL. That weapon has a nickname. It's called the Peacekeeper. And one of the reasons why it was called the Peacekeeper was after World War II, and feel free to correct me in chat if I'm wrong. I think I have my facts straight on this. So after World War II and after the formation of you know, NATO standard, the United Nations, a rifle needed to be developed that the world's army was going to use, and the FAL was introduced as the top pick. And you know, FN, they were kicking ass at the time. You know, they had the invention of the 5.7 round. That was brilliant. The P90, it wasn't even the weapon platform that was fantastic. It was the fact that the weapon as a whole... Whoopsie, I fucked that up. The weapon as a whole, it was just smarter made. You know. But what am I trying to get at? So, the FAL had a nickname. It was called the Peacekeeper, and it was because it was a primary weapon for the military that was not made, it was not really present in any real wars, unless I'm mistaken, because eventually the AK-47 got adapted, and, you know, the United States was the only real military that did not adapt the FAL, and then, you know, a lot of other countries wanted to adapt their own style of weapons. You know, Germany was one. They had their G36 platform. The United Kingdom had their LA86 platform, and what have you. So you saw a lot of different weapons pop up, and a lot of different countries kind of didn't really stick with the FAL, but it was a great single-shot rifle. It was good at automatic, too. I mean, it was pretty decently high recoil, but what weapon wasn't in the 1960s, 70s? You know, the M14 was the United States weapon, and lo and behold, you couldn't aim with it past the first shot. So anyway, I'm not talking about game design, I'm not talking about Mega Man, I'm talking about weapons. That's not good. So we're gonna go back to game design really quick. Really quick, though, just to finish up, Undying Usagi says, didn't the Colt 45 also be nicknamed the Peacekeeper 2? Yes, but that nickname was granted to that weapon in the 1860s. I'm talking about a rifle that was invented in the 1960s, so more than 100 years later. I think the real weapon that you have to take away from that Wild West era was the gun that wore the West, the Winchester, you know? If you guys saw the horror movie that came out recently, the Winchester weapon, the Winchester... Oopsie, I screwed that up. Ooh, that was close. Wow, I can't believe I screwed that up. But I'll be able to take him out again. So... By the way, if you ever showed a video game like this to a modern game designer, you know, modern game studio director head or something along those lines, they'd probably kick you out. They'd probably fire you, because this is so basic. This is, I mean, like, look at me, I'm not even... The guy's not even moving. I'm not even moving. I just have to press a button. It makes you feel powerful, and it makes you feel really good that you've discovered this, but other than that, you know, it's almost immersion breaking. Almost. I loved the music for all the SNES X games. Oh my gosh. The music for Mega Man, it was one of the traits that stuck heavy with the game. Even if you took a look at Mega Man 9, Mega Man 10, all the games that were remade later on, Capcom, they know how to make good music. Like, it's just not even an argument. It's yeah, it's not even an argument. It's no contest. No contest. They come up with some of the best music. Now, That's not to say that there are some games that could do with a little bit better music. I don't know if you noticed, but Marvel vs. Capcom 3, the intro to that game, like the menu music, it was literally the intro music to Mega Man, I think it was Mega Man 4, I think. I could be mistaken, but if you listen to the music side by side, it's like the same track. So I mean, like, it's great music, so why not do it again, but I don't know. That's one of those games that they don't try hard enough for, and that's fine. But, I mean, I know that there's probably a lot of people who wish that they could do something better with them. I can kill this real quick. But yeah, so anyway, I actually like Injustice better than I like Marvel vs. Capcom, but, you know, I downloaded Marvel vs. Capcom because it had my boy X in it. And there's just no way you can, say something else. I know I missed the Helmet and Storm Eagles level, by the way. In case you're watching, you're just wondering why I'm not powering through this. I'm not really trying too hard. I'm just kind of having fun with it. And that's not the point of today's stream. I've actually been unemployed for a while now, and I've been saying to myself, you know, I can't really stream and then also hunt for a job and expect an interviewer's call at any moment. Like, it would just ruin the stream, and it would ruin the break in the immersion for you guys as well as myself. So I said to myself, hey, I could do it on Sundays, I could do it on a normal day, but it's not going to be like a it's not going to be a constant thing, because you know, I do have my priorities, and I do have a family to look out for, so here I am just trying to entertain myself with this a little bit. Having said that, I think this is the guy with a lot of health. No, it's not. Thanks, Undying Usagi. I appreciate it. I really do. I know that there are a lot of people out there who, you know, they kind of hop in and out, and they don't really know what we do because we do a lot of odd stuff. You know, it's not every channel that you get a custom role-playing system with, nor something along the lines of like a. I'm gonna try to do this jump, but I doubt I'm gonna be able to. Ah. Whoa, whoa, whoa! That was problematic. I almost died there. Haha! Gotta go all the way back, get the card again. Get out of here. Get out of here. But yeah. You know what I might do later on today? Though this is gonna probably take us to the end of the stream. I've been playing a Metroidvania game that I've really thoroughly been appreciating called Axiom Verge, and I don't know if you guys heard of it or anything like that. I think it was part of a Humble Bundle from a few streamers. We're not big enough to do any Humble Bundles or anything like that, but I'll tell you this right now. The I gotta get these guys up here. No! No! I'm good. I'm good. Oh, come on! I can do this, guys. Hold on. There we go. Thought so. And then there's no way to do that. Alright. Also, in the beginning of the stage, there's a classic bat bot that has a very high chance of dropping 1-ups if you need it just to farm. I have 3 lives, and I'm pretty proficient in this game. I'm not worried. Let's kick some armadillo ass, shall we? I have a cat beside me who's very thoroughly asleep. Oh no, I don't have a shell anymore. I'm a big... Bleh. Bleh. Oh yeah, come on. Bleh, bleh, bleh. Ow. Ow. Alright. Oh! He says, do eat! Done, done, and done. I wasn't using the weapons before. I killed Chill Penguin first, and then I killed Flame Mammoth without the weapon, and I killed Storm Eagle without the weapon, but I used the Tornado on, no, I used the Shotgun Ice on a Spark Mandrill, and I used the Thunder Attack on Armor Armadillo, as you saw. I had to do Boomer Coango now because he's silly. And I need his little clippy things in order to do the water stage with, oh, I forget his name! The octopus! What's his name? Shit! Oh well. I'll find out. Come at me! Come at me, bro. Yep. Ow. There we go. Alright. So... yeah. Get away, get away. No, don't touch me. You're supposed to come back here with the, You're supposed to come back here with, Zero's Buster, and you're supposed to, use the, you're supposed to use, the charged up Chill Penguin ability to dash off of an ice sled and get one of the heart containers. And then you're supposed to use Epona to ride into the Kingdom of Hyrule and get, yeah, no, heart containers. I'm not calling them that. But yeah, so that's another theme that, you know, it's just another element of good game design, the theming of growing stronger. You know, there's a purpose to why they made the health bar the way that they did in this game. They wanted you to feel like you were growing stronger. And in Mega Man, it was more about overcoming obstacles. But in this game, X is by himself. Dr. Light is dead. All his allies are gone, and his friends at the Maverick Hunter HQ are actually turning rogue. You know, this is the creation of Mavericks as a whole. The theme of becoming strong enough to overcome this crisis is why Mega Man X is so successful. So that's just another reason why I think that this game is so great. I don't know if any of you guys played Mega Man X Command Mission, but that was one of my favorite games in terms of RPGs. I actually loved the way that they handled resource management, because most Japanese RPGs with turn-based strategy, you run into a pitfall of HPMP. And yeah, I do HPMP for HellBent Tabletop, but for a tabletop game, it's a little bit different. For a video game, you start running into problems like Final Fantasy is having with Final Fantasy 15. You've got a game that's in development for 6 years. And you've got a game that, by the way, I've played a little bit. I got my characters to about level 18, I think? I'm not sure. So I got nowhere near where I should be in order to give it a proper critique, but from what I'm already noticing, I'm seeing a lot of elements in this game where you... wait. Oh wow, my subtanks are full. That's great. So one of the things that I noticed is that you're trying to make a simpler game, but you're trying to make a game that's still as complex and necessary for fans of a 15th iteration of a series to appreciate. And while there are a lot of fans out there that, I know this is a trope, but they will regurgitate and ingest, you know, like anything that you feed at them. With Final Fantasy, I feel like you have to do more. And for everything that Final Fantasy XIV did for an MMO, for everything that Final Fantasy, tried to do in order to attract more of a market share, you see a lot of failures. And what I've noticed is that this is the sort of regurgitation that I was talking about, the sort of shovelware that I was afraid of for certain series that really don't deserve to be shoveled. I think Final Fantasy is really, really strong. I think Final Fantasy would be great if it took a lot of its elements and made more of a... You know what? I can't even think about it right now. It's the sort of game that you need to I actually forget the kind of weapon that you need to use on this guy. I think you actually use ow. Well, frick you too. Leave me alone. Ow. I feel like there's a weapon that you can use that's like minutely effective. That's not it. It sounded like it did a lot of damage, but it didn't. Let's not dump another one of those because I need to focus. Yep, there you go. What else? So, what I was getting at was Mega Man X Command Mission had a solution to the MP, XP, you know, HP sort of thing. They still had health points, mind you, but they had this really cool thing called an action trigger, and they kind of had just a weapon energy. So, every turn, you'd get 25 weapon energy, and you could increase that number through, like, plot devices and stuff, but it was a great change from the mundane HP, MP, and then you just drink a magic potion, you get all your MP back. I liked it because it functions a lot like how Overwatch's ultimate ability works. And then they took it one step further. You have, you had, this thing called, oh my god, stop peeping around. You had this thing called an action trigger, which was like an ultimate move that you could summon even if you had half power. So any time you used the attack between 50 and 100% resource, please stop, thank you. Anytime that you had a weapon, use the attack between 50 and 100% resource, you could summon this action trigger, and it was a micro game. Now, it was the same micro game every time, and that could change, but, you had... The micro game was harder if you summoned it at 50%, and it gradually became easier if you summoned it at 100%, but the damage output was the same. So if you were a good player, you could nail that micro game and finish a boss faster because you didn't have to generate your ultimate meter each time. And that was brilliant. Let's find out this guy's name really quick. Launch Octopus, that's his name. Undying Usagi says, I wish I could have played Command Mission. Well, if you find a good GameCube emulator, you'll be able to play Command Mission. I know that they had a port on the Wii as well, but, kind of makes me want to play the game again, but it's just not that good a game to return to, unfortunately. Ugh. So, I just think that that's a really good way of doing it. There's another game that's out there. I totally forget the name, but it kind of had a resource management of the same caliber. And then another thing that it had was no healing items. And what I liked about this was that when you finished a fight, the ultimate meter was used as a method of figuring out how much HP you should get back at the end of a mission. So it's like, okay, cool. I could kill these little rough bad guys, these cannon fodder, but I have no energy to return to after I plow through the bad guys. So what does this mean? You've got a really good creative system that allows you to punish the player for grinding, punish the player for not coming up with a creative solution to what the game is throwing at it. And it's not here to say that your solution is wrong. It's going to let you advance through the game. but it's here to tell you that, well, maybe let's get creative. Let's try something new. Because we sure as hell are. I forget what that game is called. By the way, Undying Usagi and everybody else who's watching, if you play Marvel vs. Capcom Infinity War, or the Infinite War, or whatever they decide to name that game, one of the skins that you can get for X is his scarf armor that he had in Command Mission. And I think I really like that. I thought it was a really cool thing to attribute. I'm wasting all that ammo. Yes, please do that. Thank you. Oh, look, I got both. Thank you so much. Oh, wait, hold on, I have to do this. Boink. Up. Get a little bit more for my sub-tanks, which I used up all during the last fight. Boomer Flango is my one guy that I'm not that good at killing. I remember him. I'm just not that good. There was actually a secret boss in Command Mission that I could never get by Ninetales. And oh my god, I got all the way to... See, you had to descend... There was this spiral tower that you had to go through when you were playing through Command Mission. And you had to, like, run up through the tower while this alarm was going off to get to the top before a timer ran out. And then, so at the end of the game, what they had you do is they unlocked this door, which was the same door that you ran through in the middle of the game, but you had to go down. And as you went down, you encountered this endgame boss named Ninetales. And you encountered him 9 times, and of course, I'm sure you could put 2 and 2 together and realize that at the end of one Tails, you were fighting 2 Tails, and after 2 Tails, you were fighting 3 Tails, and all the way until you got to 9 Tails, and after you fought 9 Tails, you got one of the best things in the game. Now, I was never able to beat that guy, but lo and behold, he was tough to fight. And I got all the good armor. I got the Ultimate X and the Absolute Zero armors, and I never was able to really beat that guy. One thing that I kind of want to put up to chat, not that we have many viewers, but those of you who are loyal and watching, so Sigma is the big bad evil in Mega Man X. We all know this. Epsilon was another big bad evil that you ended up fighting at in Mega Man Command Mission. Now, if you were to play... Oh gosh, come on. Lose your freaking tentacles, thank you. Now, I actually forget what the real weapon you're supposed to use against this guy is. I think it's this guy. Yeah, it's this. I don't want to die again. Or rather, I don't want to have to fight this guy again. Go away! Bloop, 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 bloop. And die. Please die. Please die, thank you. Okay, so for those of you who are loyal to chat, Sigma is Mega Man X's Big Bad Evil. Epsilon is Command Mission's Big Bad Evil. And we all know who Omega is. Basically, Omega becomes Zero in the Zero series. We're noticing a theme of the Greek alphabet, and I kind of put it up to questions to my friends to tell me what Greek letter of the alphabet could be the next Mega Man bad guy if we were to continue with the X series. Personally, I really like Theta as a bad guy name. Lyle kind of thinks that's stupid. I want to hear in chat what you think one of the Greek alphabet letters should be. Zeta is really cool, I think. Please let me know in chat, because I want to hear what your opinions are. this is the last Maverick Hunter, by the way. Rather, Maverick that we have to fight. So, I hope you guys are ready for Sigma, because I'm not. I'm gonna try to get the armor here, and, the helmet in this game is kind of one of the things that you can omit, Yep. Alright, and here we're gonna get the armor, which we desperately need. I think I'm doing this wrong. I know that there's a way to kill this guy quickly. Leave me alone. This guy just has a lot of health. This is what you get if Roadhog and Diva have a baby, basically. Or rather, Roadhog and Diva's mech. Because they sure as hell are tanky. Let me try this. I know I should be saving these because I need this for the fight. But fuck it, YOLO. I just don't remember what the weapon is that... here he goes. Now he's starting to finally puff. No! Ugh. I really should put my dash on the shoulder button. I just didn't. Because I'm stupid. Undying Misagi says, I'll think about that question in a bit. Yeah, it's a hard call. You can't just, you know, like, say Lambda, you know? You know... I'm thinking like Persei or something like that, but that's not even a letter, I don't think. I think I'm just thinking of Futurama. Omicron, Persei. Omicron is a good one, but again, I don't think that that's a letter of the Greek alphabet. I could be mistaken. You know, the college that I went to had no fraternities, so I'm not that familiar with the Greek alphabet. Yes, let's increase our defense by 100%. I always kind of associate this with X wearing a sweater vest, because he's just wearing, like, he's got his legs covered, he's got his shoulder pads, and he's got his chest covered, but he doesn't really have anything, he doesn't really have, like, sleeves yet, so he's just wearing a vest. That's all it is. Kill these Gutsman, Stoneman, Rockman, Hardman wannabes. You know, it's a game that I never really played enough of, that I should have given more of a chance. Battle Network. I heard really good things about Battle Network, and I played through the first Battle Network in its entirety. I tried to play through the second. I didn't get through it, and I played a little bit of Battle Network 5 because they had Team Proto and Team Commander, I think. I don't remember. But Proto Man was my favorite. He's actually my favorite Mega Man character of them all. Yeah, so, I don't know. I was kind of let down by Star Force, because it was just more of the same, but it was also, sort of like, I don't know. I think games that were 3D on, the DS were just not, it was like N64, but also not that good. I don't know. I was kind of turned off by that. The, Metroid Prime Hunters was really good. That was good 3D. But then again, Retro Studios, every piece of art that they make, they always go above and beyond, and they always kind of impress me. I'd personally like to see a duo of baddies, Epsilon and Lambda. Well, Undying Usagi, the big bad evil of Command Mission is named Epsilon, so you're in luck there. Oh, this is not the weapon you use. What am I doing with this? Oh, you know what I think I'm using this. No, I'm not using this. What am I using? Oh, Madonna mia, what am I using on this guy? Yeah, Epsilon's already chosen. I'm not doing this with this weapon. What am I doing? It's not... Is it Boomer Coengo's weapon? I can never remember. Yeah, it's Coengo's weapon. I was certain of it. I just can't get them to fly up when I need them to fly up. Boomer! Using my boomerangs. I keep on hitting that button because I think it's dash. I've been playing too much 20XX. Come here, you! Oh, you're going down. You're going down. I'm not going up, but you're going down. Please don't. Thank you! Alright, time for some Sigma. Upsilon! I mean, not bad. I'm not gonna knock it before I try it, but Epsilon, Upsilon, it's basically the same letter. I would do Theta. I would do Delta, but only if Delta was themed around change. Because that's literally what Delta means in math, is change. So, sort of like an environmentalist, sort of hyper-sensitive person there. I always like to think that for Sigma's face on this, if you took his smile and you just flipped it vertically, I think that would fix what we're staring at now. But right now, this face, it's just... I'm not intimidated by that face. That face kind of looks like he's constipated, not really menacing. Alright, Zero, tell me stuff. Let's split up. I'll go in first, and then you can slip in while I keep the main defense force busy. I'm really tempted to see if I have it in my emulators to play Mega Man X8, because that's another great game with great music and a great plot, and it's all fully voice-acted, too! So, you know, that's another big, big plus for me. I'm gonna give that a shot, actually. One of these days, I'm gonna try to boot up Mega Man X8. It's also a harder game, and another thing that they do is they get rid of lives, but they don't get rid of lives at the same time. They have retry chips, which is another thing that I think is really creative for the Mega Man platform. Like, you can get rid of lives, because lives are a terrible, terrible concept, but for a game like this, it actually works. Alright, this is where I always kind of screw up a little bit. Try to not talk too much and try to not screw up. Pull out. We'll put out the cheating missiles. Try to get the cheating missiles out. Oh, you see? There I go! Getting too ambitious. Wait, what am I doing? I don't want to pull out those just yet. No cheating missiles just yet. I also have to be very careful because I don't reload my weapons at the end of this. Ow. You know what? That. One thing that I like about this game that is another good element of game design, if I don't have a weapon equipped, and I collect a weapon ammunition pouch, it recharges my weapons by spreading out the ammunition throughout all of my weapons. And we see that employed in another Mega Man game that actually came earlier than this. Mega Man 6 had a secret item that you could grab in Tomahawk Man's stage if you find where Proto Man is hiding. The equalizer is a... God damn it. The equalizer is an item that basically does the same thing. If you don't have a weapon equipped, it will take all of your ammo and it will distribute it throughout all of your weapons that are depleted. And this is something that I actually think is really cool. It's a great way to make sure that resources don't go wasted, and I kind of like that they've carried that over to X. It, you know, kind of makes X stronger in a way, which is the whole premise of the game. It's just really cool to see that sort of thing. Alright, cheating missiles out. How am I doing on lives? I have 4 lives and a nearly complete sub-tank. So pull out the cheating missiles, get rid of all these guys. Try not to mess up that jump. Go away. Thank you. Get this guy out. You know, as much as I love the music in Mega Man X, nothing is going to be able to beat the Dr. Wily stage in Mega Man 2. It's just, that is the classic Mega Man song. You don't go any harder or better than that. And it's a classic. It's one of those classics, you know? Alright. Killing this guy. I'm really tempted to play Mega Man X8 again. Hey, look at that! It's a bad guy! Stay back, X. I'll take him on. Vile. It's actually kind of interesting, because Vile wears purple armor in this game. Uh-oh. That doesn't sound good. Vile wears purple armor in this game, and then I think he makes a reappearance in X3 and wears green armor. I don't remember. And then in Mega Man X8, he appears again, spoiler alert, and I can't remember if he's wearing green or purple, but he jumps between the two colors. I love how the text in this game is so obviously from 1991. Dream on! Ow. Right. There we go. Leave me alone! Ow. Hey! You faked me out! Schmuck. Go away! Asshole. Oh no, I'm trapped again. Who could have saw this coming? I'm gonna put you right there so that we can laugh. Maybe. Oh no! The ultimate sacrifice, except you come back, like, time and time again. Now I forget if I'm supposed to use the ice shotgun or the lightning on him. I think it's both, actually. It's one or the other. I'll do ice. How could you? Oh no! You're still far too weak. Prepare to be terminated. Blah blah blah. Yeah, it's ice. He's always been weak to ice and... Ow! Fuck. Shh. Get out of here! Schmuck. You wouldn't dare. Actually, if you would, he's the big bad evil guy. That's his point. Ah! Not that this guy's already down, out for count. Or maybe I'm gonna actually screw this up somehow. There we go. Yay, I didn't screw this up. sliver of health, but I didn't screw it up. Oh, 0. You 8 more powerful. I love the R's look like T's. But Sigma is much more than he appears to be, because he's infected with a virus that Dr. Wily created. Dr. Wily really was the genius of the series. Dr. Light, he was amazing at creating. He was amazing at creating life. He was not amazing at creating. How do I want to do this? Forget how to do this actually. I'll just do it. Use the cheaty missiles! Always use the cheaty missiles. Let's just do it like that. Give myself a little bit of insurance policy here. Ow. No! I screwed that up. Screwed that up so much. I just take the hit, because I can. I don't know how I made it past that, but it worked. Ah. Come on. Come on. Fire too early. There we go. Please die. Alright, let's see. Ooh, that guy keeps on respawning. Ha! That's fun. Whee! I can't be asked. Ugh. Alright. I actually can't be bothered. Come on, throw it at me! No, 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 stop. This is what I want. There we go. No, stop. Ah, fudge. Alright, that's not gonna work. And that's not gonna work either. Oh well. What are you gonna do? So, I've been streaming for about 3 hours now. I'm probably gonna cut it quits I'm gonna try to get to this boss, and then we'll cut it quits. Try to speed run this a little bit here. Not that I can, not that I'm good at it. Go, my little clamshells. Go, my little fishes. Why would you go to all them? It's not nice. Oh my god, the respawn on these guys. That's what's killing me here. Just go, missiles. Go! I feel like Samus. Spamming all my missiles. Yeah, that's right. Ah! Hey, got all my missiles back. Alright, gonna try to not suck here. Wow! All that! At least I could kind of farm supplies down here. Not that I'm going to, but... Ugh, now what is this bad guy? I forget. Oh! It's you. Shouldn't have wasted all my missiles then, huh? Yeah! It's alright. You're gonna die anyway. Ah! You can disappear all you want. that ain't gonna help. Ow. Alright. Hey, these are all looking quite familiar. Almost reminds me of a highway stage. Like an intro level of some sort. Now they're all bad guys from the same level. Oh. It's a party! It's a party! Go away. Alright. Boss time! I forget what the boss is, but we're gonna play this boss. Oh, criminy, it's this guy. No, I don't like this guy. He's schmucky. I forget how to kill him. I really forget how to kill this guy. Alright, it's not that. Not that. Don't know if that's that yet. Yeah, kinda works. Literally the first time I'm touching Stinger's weapon. Ow. You know what? That's not friendly. Yeah, Super Mario, eat your freaking heart out. Alright, what haven't we tried? We're gonna try lightning. No? Let's try cutties. Scissors! Nope, scissors not working. Rock, paper, scissors. Alright. How many more tries at this do I have, and how are my sub-tanks doing? We're gonna have to pull out all the stops. No sub-tanks, and 2 more lives. Alright, so... I don't remember how to kill this guy, so I'm just gonna try going at it eco-friendly, using nothing but plasma. It's like... we know it's plasma from X, but do we know if it's anything else? Like, could it be an energy, like just energy? Oh, gosh, I suck at this. I'm standing where they are instead of... this is not going to end well, guys. This is going to be really bad. Wow. Well, I'm screwing this up, guys. Please die. I don't like this. Got like a claw grip going on here. I wish you guys could see my controller. I'm trying to play like this. Because I don't have my dash on my shoulder buttons like they're supposed to be. I could change that in the settings, but I'm not gonna fight through that. Oh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? You know what? We're gonna do missiles. We're gonna try missiles. Cheaty missiles! They always work. This is the same color scheme that, Mega Man has, like, classic Mega Man has for the, for Top Man. Wow, none of these are hitting. I actually really liked Top Man. He had one of the weirdest and most overpowered abilities in the game. Like, the series. Top Man's ability was crazy. Oh. Now I'm actually genuinely upset. Can you leave me alone? I haven't scratched the surface of this guy. That's not good. Oh my god, leave me alone. I genuinely think I'm gonna develop arachnophobia from fighting this guy. What else? I genuinely think that I think that Mega Man 11 is going to be... Far be it from me to say that I'm more nervous about Mega Man 11 than I am excited. Because it could fail. It could fail really hard. And I don't want it to. I really genuinely don't want it to. You know what? I feel like this is it. I feel like this is it. Yeah, this has to be it, because it's doing 3 a hit, is it not? Or am I just blind? I don't have enough ammo to deal with it, but at least he'll get... I gotta stop wasting the ammo on the little dudes, but this is what's gonna have to happen. You mother. And that's all she wrote, folks. And I'm out of that, too. I think that was my last life, and if that's the case, I'm gonna log off. Yeah. Alright, guys. So, that was Mega Man X. Probably one of my more appreciated games. I want to thank everybody who watched me. I want to thank everybody who listened to me. I want to thank everybody who I want to thank everybody who tuned in and listened to me talk about some of my previous game projects and talk about game design elements and stuff. And yeah, so thanks a lot for watching. Have a good rest of your Sunday, and I will talk to you guys on Tuesday, where we are doing Off the Grid. Instead of Connor's campaign, we have kind of a messed up schedule for the next week and a half because Connor's a little bit sick, and hey, Lyle, thank you so much. So my sister's graduating from college next week, kind of a big deal, and I'm going to be going to Syracuse for doing that. So what that means is that there won't be a stream this upcoming Thursday. There won't be a stream this upcoming Sunday unless Lyle and Strix chime in and take up those slots. On Tuesday, we're going to be doing Off the Grid, what should have happened today, but nobody could make it because of scheduling conflicts. So, yeah, that's all she wrote. And hopefully you guys... Oh, well then there you go. So Lyle's going to be streaming Sunday and Thursday. We're probably going to see him and his massive collection of rotting food that he has on Surviving Mars because his civilians won't eat anything because they're all efficient as fuck and Lyle's overproducing in a resource that he can't sell. So yeah, that's me throwing a little shade. Just kidding, I love you. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye, guys.